With OTAs officially beginning today for the Detroit Lions, these players I believe are the ones that are most primed to have a breakout season in 2024. Stay tuned, everybody.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lion.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, all Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, obviously, it is officially that time of year again when off-season training activities, or as they more commonly are known, OTAs, are officially back once again. And as such, that means we are now one step closer to getting back to full-time football. Obviously, we still got a couple more, different kinds of activities to go through for the offseason. Obviously, mandatory minicamp. Obviously, training camp in the preseason. But again, we're getting closer and closer and closer to actually getting back to full-time football. And you know what? It's absolutely a wonderful feeling to have. But now that we are at the OTAs, the organized team activities, we're now starting to ramp up all the stuff that we're getting set for in the offseason. And OTAs are important because it's officially the first time that all players on a team are allowed to actually work together in terms of an organized practice. And what do I mean by that? I'm talking about actually where they're running drills, they're not necessarily doing conditioning and things like that. It's like, hey, this is actually like a full live-on practice. The only thing that you're really not doing is like going full tilt like with actual pads on. Now, that's important because you're actually allowing the rookies and you're allowing the veterans to come together. You're allowing them to practice. You're allowing them to be on the same field at the same time. So it's a really, really exciting time for all parties involved, whether it's the players, whether it's the coaches, whether it's the fans, whoever the case might be. It's just a really exciting time. And it's also an exciting time, like I said, for the fans because now we're anxiously awaiting news on how these practice sessions are going. We're waiting to hear what's going on in these practice sessions because obviously OTAs are closed to the public in general. They're only allowed to certain people in terms of media. Now, this offseason, the Lions added quite a couple of new players with big-time names, whether it was through the draft, whether it was through free agency. They also brought back some names that are also pretty big. And these players are definitely going to garner attention because of the fact that they have quite a lot of name recognition. And while that's definitely something that many people will want to find out more about, they're going to want to see how these players are doing in practice, they're going to want to see how they're getting along with their teammates and all this other stuff, I can guarantee you this, that there are other players who will have just as much, if not more, attention on them for an entirely different reason. And that's because, if you think about it, the Lions have several players that they are looking towards, that they are trying to keep it, they're going to keep their eyes on to see about them possibly getting more out of them, whether it's an increase in playing time, an increase in production, or both. And if you think about it, these are the players that the front office of the Detroit Lions are wanting to see to further develop and, as I said, produce more, but also the fans are wanting to see this also. So for me, it's like, hey, everybody's kind of looking towards these players and they're like, hey, we think that you can give us more. We are believing that you have more to offer. And so that's why I believe that these players that I'm talking about, they are primed for the biggest leap. They are primed for what I would call a breakout year in 2024. So, who are these players that I'm referring to? There's a couple I have in mind. But for me, the number one player that I think is primed for a breakout year that's actually ready to take that leap forward is wide receiver Jameson Williams. Now, Jameson Williams is a guy that I think is going to get a lot of attention this year as a breakout candidate because you have to think about it here. Coming into 2024, Jameson Williams is firmly established as wide receiver number 2 on the Lions depth chart. And to be entirely fair, this is going to be the first time that he's actually going to get that responsibility full time. I know that some people are going to say, well, David, he's been listed as the wide receiver number 2 in the Lions offense for the last couple of years. I understand that, but let's understand something else. even though he was listed as wide receiver number 2 last year, let's be fair and honest here. Josh Reynolds primarily got most of that wide receiver 2 production, even though Josh Reynolds was probably more listed like wide receiver number 3. The point of the matter is now it's Amon-Ra St. Brown on one side primarily, and then it's going to be Jameson Williams on the other. And if you think about it, this being the first season that this is going to happen for Jameson Williams is because of a couple of things that have obviously transpired over the last couple of years. Obviously, we know when we drafted him, he was dealing with an ACL tear. He didn't play most of his rookie year. Then, the start of the 2023 season, he was suspended, obviously for the connection that he had with a gambling violation. That also, kind of delayed his ability to get some time, but now we don't have to worry about that. There's no injury. There's no sort of disciplinary action that's being held against him. This is going to be the first time that we should be able to see Jamo start from the very beginning of the season all the way to the end of the season, barring any injuries during in-season. And hopefully we don't have that happen. But the reason why I think the OTAs are going to be not only important but for this particular situation is because it's going to allow Jared Goff and Jameson Williams to develop even further chemistry and rapport with one another. And so far in times past, we've already seen glimpses of this kind of show up. And the realistic point of the matter is that now that they're going to be primarily working more and more together because Josh Reynolds is gone and more is going to be put on Jameson Williams' plate, I believe that the Lions are now going to be able to further stretch and stress a defense to its breaking point because they're going to be using Jameson Williams even more. And you have to think about it here. The reason I think that is because, first and foremost, just having Jameson Williams more involved in the offense is going to give him more opportunities. But this is also kind of dependent upon Jared Goff. Now, I know for some Lions fans, they hold against Jared Goff this I don't know why it is this way, but they hold this misconception that Jared Goff is not able to throw a deep ball. That he somehow is unable to throw deep passes. Well, first and foremost, that misconception needs to be addressed because what I believe is going on here is most people think a deep pass is like a 50, 60-yard bomb. In fact, the NFL says a deep pass is a pass that is 20 yards or more down the field. Well, if you take a look at some of these stats that come from next-gen stats, you take a look at some of these stats that come from, further advanced analytics sites, Jared Goff last year was the number one quarterback in terms of deep completion percentage. He threw 63.2% of his passes complete on deep throws. That was number one in the NFL. When you take a look at his true passer rating, he was the second best in that category with a 115.1. And then when you take a look at his play action completion percentage on deep throws, which we already knew Jared Goff is pretty damn good out of play action anyway, he was ranked third in that category, 68.1%. The point is, what Jared Goff does really well, whether it's out of play action, throwing the deep ball as far as off of sets where, it's pushing the limits of that offense, it's really going to take advantage of what Jameson Williams does best, which is stress and stretch a defense, whether it's vertically, whether it's horizontally, it does not matter. Which is why I believe that with Jameson Williams getting more opportunities now than ever, he is my number one candidate to be primed to have a breakout year. And I believe that working with Jared Goff, we're definitely going to see that this year. So that is something that I believe is going to be a huge thing. But it's not just also based upon Jared Goff here. Again, many people, like I say, are worried about Goff's ability to throw the deep ball. But like I say, we've seen in times past, Goff has shown the ability to throw the deep ball with deep strikes all over the field. And the reason why I also believe that Jamo is set to have a prime breakout year this year is because we have to take a look at what Jameson Williams did at the end of last year. If you take a look at the last 3 games that Jameson Williams played last year in the 2023 season versus the production he put up over the total year, it's actually kind of interesting. In the last 3 games that Jameson Williams played, he had 11 receptions for 159 yards, 14.5 an average a catch. He didn't have any touchdown catches, but he caught 73.3% of the passes that were thrown his way. Now, that doesn't sound like a whole lot. But think about it this way, folks. Over the entire course of the 2023 season, Jameson Williams only caught 24 passes for 354 yards, 2 touchdowns, and had a 57.1 reception rate. Think about that. Those 11 receptions that he caught at the end of the year makes up almost 50% of his total production. Same thing with the yards. Then if you think about it, how much higher the catch percentage is at the end of the year versus the entire total of the year, it's a vast difference, which tells me that at the end of last year, Jared Goff and Jamo were really starting to get on the same page. And you can further see it when you take a look at Jamo's playoff stats when we started getting into the playoff games. In the playoffs, he had 6 receptions for 79 yards, 13.2 an average a catch, 1 touchdown reception with a 66.7 catch percent rate. The point of the matter is I expect that Jared Goff is going to get more out of Jamo. Jamo's obviously going to get more. He's going to get more opportunities. He's going to get more reps, which means that he should be able to produce way more than what he did over the final 3 games of the season. And that's why I believe overall, with everything I presented, Jamo's going to have a breakout year. So that's player number 1. Player number 2, the second player that I believe is primed to have a breakout season. This one I know is going to kind of be a little bit confusing. It might get me a bit of an eyebrow pop from some people, but just bear with me. The second player I believe that is primed to have a breakout year is Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, understand exactly why I'm saying this and what I'm saying. The statement is not to diminish Gibbs' first year, his rookie season, because that's not saying that wasn't an impressive season. It was a very impressive season. And the reason I mean that is, well, let's think about it. Jahmyr Gibbs was a Pro Bowl selection as a rookie. He made it to the all-rookie team as, a rookie, hence the reason of the name. And that is indeed a very noteworthy point about his rookie year. But here's why I'm saying that I believe that Jahmyr Gibbs is primed for a breakout year. Because I know for 100% fact that Jahmyr Gibbs has way more to provide to the Lions. There's way more within him. Here's the reason why I know this. Again, kind of like how I did with Jameson Williams, take a look at Gibbs' first 6 games with the Detroit Lions last year versus the last 11 games he was with the Lions. In the first 6 games that Jahmyr Gibbs played with the Lions, he had 39 rushes for 179 yards, 4.6 an average a rush for 0 touchdowns. I'm not looking at the receiving yards because while that is something that Jahmyr Gibbs does, he's a running back, so I'm going to primarily look at the rushing statistics, okay? So I'm not diminishing them. I'm just wanting to look at one specific facet of what Gibbs does here. Well, those are the rushing statistics for Gibbs over the very first 6 games. The last 11 games that Gibbs was with the Lions in 2023 playing, he had 143 rushes for 766 yards, 5.4 an average, and 10 touchdowns rushing the ball. Just look at there's a vast difference in production between those 2 sets of numbers. In the first 6 weeks of the season, the Lions barely used Gibbs. Like, they didn't really use him much at all. And that's the first 6 weeks of the year. That's a third of the season right there. And the Lions barely even used him. Well, think about it. This tells me one very important thing about Gibbs, and especially in regards to the Lions, is that if you think about it, there is so much untapped production that the Lions left on the table from Jahmyr Gibbs last year. And now with him being fully integrated into the offense, they're no longer going to have to slowly bring him in and use him. They can just, hey, we're going to start you off from the go. You're going to be let loose and just have fun. I fully believe that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to make last year's production, absolutely just look like child's play. It's going to put that year to shame because I truly believe that when you take a look at a guy that even though the very first 6 weeks of the year he really didn't do much and was that freaking close to getting 1,000 rushing yards, there's a lot of untapped potential. There's a lot of untapped production in that young man. And I believe that this year is going to be a much better year than what he had in 2023. Absolutely believe it to my bones. Now, that's player number 2. Player number 3 is linebacker Jack Campbell. Now, Jack Campbell is the other first-round draft pick from the 2023 draft pick opposite of Jahmyr Gibbs. And again, Jack Campbell in 2023, he had a pretty solid outing. However, I know this much also about this guy because I was very high on him in the pre-draft process from a couple of years ago. Jack Campbell has, again, more to provide to the Detroit Lions because if you go back to what he was in college, he was an absolute terror on defense for opposing college programs. And that was evident in the fact that he won the Butkus Award in 2022. But when we take a look at how 2023 started for him, when we take a look at how 2023 started for him, it was kind of a little bit slow. Again, he only started one of the first 5 games that he was allowed to play with the Lions. But after that 5th week, Then he started every single game remaining in the year, save one. So if you think about it, between weeks 1 and 5, he only started one game. And then if you take a look at the average amount of percentage of snaps on defense he got, he only averaged about 46.6% of the defensive snaps between weeks 1 and 5. But after he started the remainder of the games, that average jumped up exponentially to 64.3% of the defensive snaps. And by the end of the year, Jack Campbell was an integral part of that linebacking core that had very, very stellar play, and part of the reason why the Lions had the second best rush defense in the entire NFL last year. And again, when you take a look at the stats that Jack Campbell had last year, it's no small wonder. Jack Campbell had 95 total tackles last year. That was second best out of all linebackers that were rookies last year. That's pretty impressive. And again, Jack Campbell was named to the all-rookie team in 2023, just like Jahmyr Gibbs. So for me, it would not surprise me that Jack Campbell takes another leap forward this year. He gets even better this year. Now that he's got his feet fully under him, he's had a full year, not only in terms of off-season work, and he's about to get another one, but now he's had a full year of starting reps. And on top of that, Alex Anzalone is still there. He's going to continue to learn from him. So again, the way I look at it is not only is Jack Campbell going to get better, but the Lions could have one of the best linebacking core units in the NFL this year because Alex Anzalone is pretty damn good in his own right. That's player number 3. Player number 4. This one is one that I'm really excited about. Ify Melifonwu. Melifonwu was one of Brad Holmes' very first draft picks, and things have been kind of a little bit rocky for Melifonwu over the last couple of years. Originally, he was drafted to be a cornerback. That didn't really work out, so he switched over to playing safety. And for that, he kind of then stayed on the bench for the next couple of years, kind of developing. But when opportunity presented itself this year, he didn't look back. He instantaneously pounced on it. Because you have to think about it. For the majority of the season last year, he was primarily regulated to special teams play. But from week 13 on, when he finally got his chance to actually start at safety, he then became a near permanent staple of the defense, not only in terms of the regular season, but then even going into the postseason. Think about this. In the final 5 regular season games that Melifonwu got to start in, he put up 26 tackles. That was 78% of his total production in 2023. He had 3 tackles for loss, 75% of his total production in that category. 3 sacks, 100% of his production. 2 interceptions, 100% of his production. And a forced fumble, again, 100% of his production. Pretty much my whole point is this. When Ify Melifonwu got on the field and was actually allowed to start and really show what he could do, he really put on a show. And for me, that show that he put on showed that he can play safety at an extremely high level. And I believe that he will continue to expand upon that role going into 2024 and have his official first breakout season for the Lions in 2024. And why do I think this is important? Well, you have to think about it. The more players and the more pieces that the Lions can use in that defensive backfield will allow them even more flexibility to move players around, which is going to allow them to give different looks, different schemes that can confuse and really apply pressure on opposing offenses. Because the more you can do in that backfield, the more you can actually get out of that defensive scheme set that, Aaron Glenn is trying to run. Now that you've got Terrion Arnold, now that you've got Enos Rakestraw, now that you've got all these pieces back there, Carlton Davis and Meek Robinson and all the rest of them, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, you've now got a lot of guys that you can move into multiple different positions because so many of them play multiple roles within that defensive backfield. So for me, the Lions, with Ify Melifonwu really now starting to have that ability to take off, I believe it's really going to not only impact Ify Melifonwu's ability to play well, but the rest of the defensive secondary to play well. Now, I'm going to say this. There is one player on here that I'm going to mention as an honorable mention. The only reason I don't have him as an official number on my list is because there's a lot of guys in front of him that I don't think are going to allow him a lot of opportunities. So when he does get the opportunities, he's definitely going to have to make the most of them. That's Broderick Martin. As we already know, Broderick Martin has come into camp this year and he looks absolutely fit as hell. He did pretty much exactly what Lee McNeil did last year. He dropped fat, he dropped weight, he put on muscle. He looks fit as hell. Now, I'm expecting Broderick Martin to do some things this year. I'm expecting him to make an impact. The problem is that, as I stated, He's already got a Lee McNeil in front of him on the depth chart, and by the way, we also added DJ Reader as well. There's already 2 guys that are in front of him on the depth chart that are going to eat up a lot of the opportunities that he could have potentially had we not signed DJ Reader this offseason. But I still expect that Broderick Martin is going to take a leap forward this year. I just don't think it's going to be a breakout season per se. But I do expect Broderick Martin to have some sort of an impact, to have some sort of production this year. After last year, he was pretty much, pretty much an afterthought. Nobody really saw much of him in the entire year, which definitely irks some Lions fans after we gave up so much draft capital to move up and draft him in the 2023 draft. But the point is when you take a look at all these names that I've mentioned, I believe that they're all primed to have a breakout year. Again, except Broderick Martin. I just expect that he's going to have some moments to have a chance to shine. But all those other guys, I expect that they're going to have a breakout year. I expect we're going to see them shine in OTAs, minicamp, and the upcoming training camp when we get to it. But until that time, I figured I'd put this episode together so that way we could talk about it. That way I could hear your thoughts and opinions on it, and then we could go from there. But having said that, I'm going to end the segment, and I just want to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, again, highly encourage y'all to subscribe because it really helps my channel out. But I also encourage y'all to do this. After you subscribe, please make sure you turn on that bell notification icon as well, so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Again, we want you guys coming back to the channel as soon as I push out new content, so that way you guys never miss out on the latest stuff I have to offer. I also encourage y'all, please, to make sure you do this. Share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we can share it, the greater the channel grows and spreads. And with that being said to everybody, I hope y'all are having a great day. I hope y'all got something that makes you happy. I hope y'all got something that makes you smile. And with that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed the content. And until the next time we meet, I want to say this to y'all. God bless. Thank you all for everything that you do. And I'll see you all in the next episode.